Hi friends, my name's Matt, and like so many of us right now, I feel like I'm in a continuous fluctuation between spending the whole day in my pyjamas, not really wanting to do anything, to trying out this brand new idea, this new concept. For so many of us, you might not have heard of it before, you might have tried it, this whole idea of going for a run to the next day deciding that actually no, I'm not even that fussed about getting dressed, I'm not really fussed about doing anything, I'm just going to chill out today. To the day following that, to be like, no, actually I need to get on that health train, I need to be really going for it. From the next day, just spending it going from screen to screen to screen, just watching endless nonsense really, to tuning in to workout live streams the day after, to the day after that tuning into cooking live streams whilst also eating an entire packet of biscuits on my own. And friends, whether you're one or the other, or whether like me, you're fluctuating between the two, I want to acknowledge right now that that is very much okay. Friends, at a time like this, it is so important that we are being kind to one another. But it's equally essential that we're being kind to ourselves. As like always, it's okay not to be okay. And for many of us right now, we're working out whether we live for our work or whether we work so that we can live. And there's been all these incredible insights and observations and quotes that have been flying around. But when talking to my sister about all this earlier this week, she simply reminded me actually that whilst I may be working from home, the reality of it is I'm at home during a crisis trying to work. And friends, I want to be really honest with you right now and hold my hands up and say, hey look, I am really struggling with motivation. But that's also okay. So tonight, whilst I share this message with you guys, I want to acknowledge that we're in the same boat as we begin to look at the scriptures together. But before we do that, I want you to picture this. You're in first century Jerusalem, you're the unofficial 13th disciple, you know, the one in the group chat that always reads the messages but never replies. They exist, they're there, but they're never mentioned, therefore the evidence of you existing doesn't quite make it into the Bible. But it's a Friday, and it's that Friday. Your friend, your mentor, your teacher who you've been following around for the last couple of years is hanging on a cross. And all his promises surrounding your future feel as though they've been stripped away from you and you've been left with nothing. A feeling I imagine a lot of us are feeling right now as our freedom feels like it's been stripped away from us. All our plans for our future have been put on hold and it can feel like we've been left with nothing. But friends, as we know, the most incredible story of all time doesn't end there. And next week we're going to be hearing from Rich all about that, a load more at our Movement Online Easter special. But right now, we're not in that space, and nor were the disciples. But you see, the thing is, just like that ragtag group of disciples, we've never really been that good at listening. As I think Jesus shared some incredible wisdom on what to do when in the situation, the same position we're in now. So why don't you join me and turn to Matthew 25 verses 1 to 13, and I'm going to read the NIV version. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied. "There may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in and with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." Now friends, at first glance this might seem like a somewhat strange, unusual story to turn to in light of being motivated during this lockdown period. Ultimately, the parable points towards the second coming, the return of Christ and the judgment of the world. Something we're going to bear in mind, but for the time being we're just going to store that at the back of our minds. But as we begin to take a closer look behind all the symbols in this somewhat peculiar story, I believe we'll start to see Jesus' wisdom for today. So first things first, what on earth is this club of virgins about? Well, rather than a literal group of women, let's look at them as the church. Let's put ourselves within this story. You see, we know that Jesus is referred to the bridegroom, and that we know that the church, us, we are his bride to be. But hang on, what's the difference between the wise and the foolish? I'm sure when we think of our own churches and our own congregations, there's definitely a few characters that easily fall into both categories, perhaps some a lot more easily than others. But in this story, we see the difference was the wise brought along plenty of oil for their lamps, whereas the foolish didn't take any in the first place. So what gives with the oil and the lamps? Well, why don't we simplify this symbolism once again? If we look at the lamps in light of our own faith and our own personal relationship with God, we might begin to understand this story a whole lot more. In order to be with Christ at the end of the age, we need to maintain our relationship with God. We need to keep our lamps burning. But in this story, both the wise and foolish had faith. After all, we've already acknowledged that the only difference was the oil. So what does that mean for us? You see, oil in the ancient world was a valuable commodity. It was a resource that you needed to make sure you looked after yourself, and it was one that you needed to make sure you were stocked up on. As we see in the passage, it wasn't something to be shared. In the same way, as much as we can share our faith through stories, we can't actually share in our personal relationship. As one of the many incredible things about the living God that we serve is that he wants to have intimacy with all of us individually. So friends, at this strange time where we may feel like we're stuck in limbo, in that waiting period, both for Christ's second coming, but also for change to come during this pandemic, let us be like the wise virgins. One of the great ways we can do this, of course, is through reading our Bibles. There's so many motivating passages that we can learn off by heart for when we need them. 2 Timothy 1:7, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Philippians 4:13, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Matthew 5:14, you are the light of a world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. All of which are great. But just like when we go to the doctors and they give us antibiotics and we start to feel better, yet we still continue to take the medication, we see the same if we continue to read these passages. If we continue to take in God's word, we'll experience so much more of the good things he has for us. Friends, let's make time to spend with Jesus. Let's make time to delve deeper into his word. Personally, I know this can be so difficult. I remember the struggle it was back in 2017 when I first decided I was going to try and read the Bible in 1 year. I'd gone to London with my at the time girlfriend for New Year's, and on New Year's Day we'd gone to a New Year's service at a church. A lot of my friends go to a church called HTB, and in that service they advertised their Bible in 1 year app. And I was feeling optimistic and I was feeling quite good about it at the time, and thought, hey, why not? Let's give that a bash and let's give it a go. And then things seemed to go pretty well for the first couple of months. But as I got closer and closer to my exams, I started to miss a few days here and a few days there. Next thing you know, it was exam season, and that held all my focus. Then it was summer and I was out and about and I was celebrating with my friends. And before you know it, we've come to the end of September, and I am well over 180 days behind. Some of you may know at that time I left God's own beautiful county of Yorkshire and moved down to Bristol, and with very few connections. Shortly after that, my girlfriend and I broke up, leaving me fairly lonely and with an awful lot more time on my hands. Now, it is at this point that I needed to press into God more than ever. I wasn't enjoying where I lived, I wasn't enjoying my work, and I definitely wasn't enjoying feeling so alone. I needed to find motivation from somewhere desperately. So I began to pick up where I left off in my Bible 1 year. It started with 1 a day, then it became 2 in a day, then it became 5 in a day. And believe it or not, it went as much as 18 days in one single day. So that come the 31st of December 2017, I had caught up and completed my Bible in 1 year plan, and I truly experienced that John 6:63 moment where Jesus says to his followers, "The words I've spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit and life." Friends, be encouraged. When we need God most, we can encounter his word, through which I was filled with his Spirit, and it brought me new life when I most needed it. And that's available right here, right now. At this time where everything seems so unfamiliar, when our motivation to work or even to work out is all over the shop, let us not overlook our time with God. Let's encounter his word. Let's spend time in his presence through prayer and through worship. And let's go deeper in our relationship with Jesus. So we're not caught out like the foolish virgins, but instead we're just like the wise who get to enter the banquet by keeping our lamps and our lives on fire for God. Amen.